Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on the state of the global economy and the game change offered by the strikes against Iran.
The Iranian regime was the head of the snake for global terror, and we are going to cut off that head, and Iran will no longer be able to project terrorism around the world.
Bessent says he is about to make a series of announcements to support oil trade in the Gulf.
This was a well-telegraphed geopolitical event. The crude market had already moved substantially over the past 2 months.
Plus, all the rest of today's news that got us squawking, like the market reaction to Iran and OpenAI's Sam Altman on the AI company's deal with the Defense Department.
He wished that the deal had not come together so hastily because it made them look opportunistic and sloppy.
It's Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ Stock Exchange in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernen. Andrew is off today. It was a pretty wild day yesterday. You did see the Dow down by about 1,200 points at its weakest levels. It closed only down by about 400%, which is less than 1%. The S&P was down by less than 1% at the close. Only the NASDAQ was down by more than that. But it was a pretty impressive recovery after what looked was going to be a pretty tough sledding.
Both days, Monday and Tuesday.
Right.
Closed
We're down less than 1%.
Well,
we're down about 1% for the week. Right?
The NASDAQ was down like 500 at one point, 600 yesterday, and came back, cut it in half, basically, those losses.
Yeah, we will talk about some of the other international exchanges that have seen much more pressure, as including the South Korean exchange. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But let's focus on what happened here with the Treasury markets, too. Yields are back up above 4%. The 10-year now sitting at 407. The 2-year is at 351. Energy prices have been where so much of the focus has been. WTI is now above $75 a barrel. That's a gain of another 0.7%. And what's been very interesting to watch is prices at the pump have risen overnight. I think on the national average up by about 11 cents. If you're watching other places, though, you might see more than that. Precious metals have also seen quite a bit of a bid, too. Gold at this point is up by about 1.5%, 5,200. Weren't we at 5,400 just a couple of days ago?
Yeah, almost 55.
Yeah.
We're not going to look at Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's almost to 72,000, and it has been. It looked again like it was going under 60 at one point, but there it is, up 4.4%. Someone yesterday said the crypto winters are 4-year cycles, has to do sometimes with the halvings. And they talked about a scary price where what their objective was, it was like down at 40,000 or something. I don't know whether that happened, but
winter is coming.
But the winter's already here. But it's been looks like it's been trying to make a base, and trying to make a bottom. It kept tested 62,000 several times, and I don't know. Does it mean anything? It's back above 70. We'll see.
When you talk about the halving and winter is coming, it sounds like Game of Thrones.
The haves and have-nots. Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or there's something else that serious Christians, what are they waiting for when he comes back?
Oh, yes, for the return of...
What's it called? The rapture.
Yes.
The halving.
And who gets left behind?
Bitcoin holders feel some rapture after the halving sometimes.
In Asia, South Korea's Kospi index was temporarily halted. It actually ended down by 12%. That was its worst day ever in 46 or 47 years of keeping records on this. Heavyweights Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix fell by roughly 10% each. The catalyst for the pain on this were South Korea's status as a major oil importer. That makes its stock market especially sensitive to swings in the price of crude. Also in focus, though, fears over the pace of AI adoption and potential for profit taking, because the Kospi was up 75% last year. It was down 12% today. The day before, it was down by about 7%. And even with those 2 days of losses, it is still up for the month. So you have to put things in context for exactly what's been happening in this market.
Last year, up 75.
Yeah, and this year, this month, it's still up, even watching the almost 20% decline that you've seen in 2 days.
Now for the latest on the Iran war, let's get to CNBC's Dan Murphy in Dubai. Good morning, Dan.
Joe, good morning to you. Well, we have just been able to confirm that for a second time this week, drones have targeted Ras Tanura. This is the world's largest crude export hub. Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Defense confirming an interception took place today that resulted in no damage. But the message is pretty clear here. This is the largest crude oil export facility on Earth, with about 6.5 million barrels a day in the crosshairs. So any outage here could cause an energy price shock. And it's not just energy infrastructure. We also saw a drone strike hit the US consulate in Dubai this morning, which also signals that the Iranians aren't just keeping up attacks on the UAE, but also on American diplomatic facilities. That drone strike caused a fire that was quickly put out, and thankfully there were no casualties. And at this hour as well, shipping through the Strait of Hormuz also remains heavily disrupted, which is keeping oil prices pretty well bid this morning. The world's largest shipping companies also pulling back. MSC, Maersk, CMA CGM and Hapag-Lloyd have halted sailings or ordered ships in the region to hold position. President Trump also indicating the US Navy could escort oil tankers through the strait and also offering insurance guarantees for vessels transiting. But it's too soon to say at this point if that is going to be enough to restore confidence and to get some of these shippers moving again. And then in terms of the markets, we are seeing very different reactions across the region today. Here in the UAE, both the Abu Dhabi and Dubai exchanges resumed trading today and almost instantly hit a limit down. In Saudi Arabia, we saw higher oil prices providing some support for the energy names like Aramco. And then there's Israel. Take a look at this, a relief rally underway with investors betting that this US and Israeli campaign has weakened Iran and its regional proxy network, which cuts the long-term risks for the Israeli economy as well. It's back over to you.
And it's interesting, and I guess we should have been able to figure it out ourselves, but the pivot away from an oil-based economy in the Middle East, maybe there's a method to Iran's madness to some extent because everything's disrupted. All the glitzy capitals of the Middle East, stopping points on global travel, the airports, the tourism industry, people stranded. It's the whole idea that it's a safe place to go for either business, like for, I don't know, Amazon or whomever. That whole concept is now thrown into a flux with what's happening. And that would make sense for why Iran would attack its neighbors, to say, look, you're going to pay for this too.
You got it, Joe. And for many years now, the Gulf capitals have really been positioning themselves as safe havens for deep pools of public and private capital, aviation hubs, tourism drivers too. And the attacks that we've seen from the Iranians have been largely symbolic. As you know, they've been targeting not just luxury hotels, but also icons of Dubai, like the Burj Al Arab, for example. And the missiles that we've seen being leveled towards this country are coming in thick and fast. Actually, UAE authorities earlier today said that they were able to confirm more than 1,000 direct Iranian attacks on the UAE. That is more than any other targeted country combined. In terms of how the Gulf capitals are going to respond, I think that's a big question as well. The UAE said today that it wouldn't be changing its defense position. It's remaining its defensive stance here as its current strategy. But of course, whether or not we see the UAE and Saudi Arabia perhaps coming together to also retaliate, given the amount of strikes that we've seen from the Iranians, is also a big question mark at this point, and probably something really important. This is
like a cornered animal, kind of lashing out and doing these things
but it's
without
like
necessarily thinking through what the response from those neighbors that's attacking is going to be.
It's like resetting the whole chessboard, though. Yeah. It's really, I don't know whether anyone anticipated that would, the deck chair, however, rearranging everything, allies, friends, enemies in the Middle East. It's really quite amazing to watch, I think. Anyway, Dan, we appreciate your time as we do this visit, I guess, this afternoon for Dan at this point.
OpenAI CEO Sam Altman telling employees his company doesn't get to make operational decisions on how its AI technology is used by the Defense Department. That's according to a transcript of an all-hands meeting yesterday that was reviewed by CNBC. Altman's been criticized by some workers since announcing a deal with the Defense Department late last week. He told employees the Pentagon will allow the company to build safety features it thinks are appropriate. But he also made clear decisions on how technology is used rest with the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth. I think he also said he was a little, he wished the deal had not come together so hastily because it made them look opportunistic and sloppy, coming right on the heels of the Anthropic situation where the Defense Department separated from them. But it was an interesting forum that was held with the employees there yesterday.
Talked about it a lot yesterday, in fact, and not to imply we want to emulate China, but I don't think China has a lot of woke discussions about what they're able to do with AI over there in terms of weapon systems and everything else.
No, but this is when you have private companies that are doing these things, you're going to have this friction that comes about.
Right.
Particularly in Silicon Valley.
But as Hegseth said, our soldiers deserve the very best.
Tease will be next.
Coming up on Squawk Pod, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
The execution of Epic Fury is proceeding and doing better than planned.
Next steps on the engagement in Iran and the role Israel is playing as U.S. ally.
The two most powerful air forces in the world now have complete control of the Iranian sky. We will take out their ballistic missiles and the bunkers over the coming days.
Welcome back. This is Squawk Pod from CNBC.
Stand Joe by in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, his mic, cue.
You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC. I thought you knew all this. I'm Joe Kernen, along with Becky Quick. Andrew is off today. I almost just read this right at the top because I had it on my screen here. Now, to our newsmaker of the morning, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you.
Joe, good to be with you and Becky this morning.
We have been, I guess, focusing on some other secretaries of war, secretaries of state. But I just have a feeling that you've been fairly busy as Secretary of Treasury and doing all you can to help in this effort with the war in Iran.
Well, Joe, the Secretary of Treasury and the Secretary of Energy, so Chris Wright and myself, sit on the National Security Council, and I can tell you that we've had months and weeks of planning for an event like this. But I want to congratulate our Department of War and the leadership there. Everything is going magnificently. The execution of Epic Fury is proceeding and doing better than planned. I believe last night we took full control of the Iranian skies along with the Israeli Air Force. So the two most powerful air forces in the world now have complete control of the Iranian sky, and we began a massive bombing campaign, and we will take out their ballistic missiles and the bunkers over the coming days.
So many intersections in what we're military is trying to do, what President Trump is trying to do, and what you and the Energy Secretary control, especially with what we're hearing about the Strait of Hormuz. We're watching oil prices. I guess you out of the corner of your eye saw the stock markets around the world. Pretty good performance in this country over the last two sessions, given what we're undertaking at this point.
Well, Joe, if I put on my hat from my previous life as a fund manager, this was a well-telegraphed geopolitical event. The crude market had already moved substantially over the past 2 months. So the move we saw on Monday wasn't even in the top 50 moves in crude. And again, what I can tell you is that there's been a lot of biased and bad reporting here, and I would encourage everyone to look through the noise and see where we are going on the other side of this. In terms of the crude markets are very well supplied. There are hundreds of millions of barrels on the water away from the Gulf, but more importantly, we have a series of announcements that we're going to be making. We began yesterday with the announcement that DFC will provide the insurance for both the crude carriers and the cargo ships operating in and around the Gulf. Over the weekend, Lloyd's of London nullified the insurance, so U.S. government is going to step in, and when it is appropriate and should it be needed, the U.S. Navy will provide safe passage through the straits for the oil tankers.
We're a different country now in terms of production, obviously, and obviously President Trump has something to do with that, and we're well supplied in this country now, but it is a global market price and everything else. Any thought, Mr. Secretary, of tapping any of the SPRs? I mean, we tapped it there was an election coming, and we tapped it because prices were too high in the last administration. And any reason to do that now?
Again, Joe, the Secretary Wright, the National Security Council, President Trump, we've all been coordinating on this well in advance. We believe the market is very, very well supplied. We are in contact with many of the countries around the world via the IEA. There is a gigantic SPR, not only in the U.S., but around the world. But the point you made, Joe, in terms of the energy dominance that President Trump has put forward during this administration, we're in a very, very different position than when the Russians invaded Ukraine. We are at all-time high in production, both for oil and natural gas. We are an exporter to the rest of the world, and U.S. LNG continues to flow around the world. So this is a very different ballgame than in February of 22.
Secretary Bessent, thank you for being with us this morning. The idea of providing insurance to all of those carriers, how does that work in practice? Is it something that those certificates are being issued at the moment? We've watched the tankers and all of the ships that are sitting on either side of the Strait of Hormuz, afraid to go through it. I don't believe those ships have started moving yet, but how would that insurance work in practice? When would the Navy actually step in and start doing some of these things?
Well, again, Becky, I think we're inside the 12 or 24-hour window from our announcement yesterday, and that Ben Black, the president of DFC, has already had a plan in his pocket for months for this contingency, and we will be moving out to the ship owners, to the insurance brokers, and over the coming days. And I can also tell you that the Iranian Navy is substantially degraded. Most of their ships are sunk. And the U.S. has naval and air dominance in the region.
If I could ask you to keep your fund manager hat on for just a moment. We were talking earlier this morning about some of the moves we've seen. The shekel is actually up against the dollar. The Israeli market stabilized. What does that tell you?
Again, it tells me that markets live in the future, and that someone is willing to look on the other side of this, and not to these fantastical media accounts. Becky, I will tell you, the region is not on fire. What is happening is that someone with an iPhone, and look, it's terrible when a hotel gets hit. In Bahrain, when there is a drone that hits the airport in Doha, but those are one-offs. The Iranian attack capabilities have been substantially degraded. The U.S. is getting stronger and stronger every day, and the most fulsome part of our campaign is just starting, so that there are the people in the market willing to look through this, and that's what I think everyone should do, because President Trump has a vision here, and I think everyone should just step back and think about what does the world look like, if we go back and think the conflict in Syria, there's new leadership there, and that is safer today. Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro has been removed. This Iranian regime, that they're ballistic missiles and they will not have nuclear weapons, and most importantly, The Iranian regime was the head of the snake for global terror, and we are going to cut off that head, and Iran will no longer be able to project terrorism around the world.
Secretary, right at the beginning. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, and that's what markets are looking at, should be looking at.
At the beginning, I said before, during, and after what we're doing as far as actions from the Treasury Department. Keep your fund manager hat on. You have said that some of the sanctions and other actions taken months ago caused what not everyone understands, but a dollar shortage that in some way may have at least made it a more fertile environment for the protests that obviously caused a reaction in 30,000 deaths and maybe precipitated what we're doing right now. Can you go into exactly what you meant by that, and it was intentional?
Sure, Joe. So last March, President Trump gave the order for Treasury to exert a maximum pressure campaign on Iran. I said in a speech at the Economic Club of New York in March that I predicted that the Iranian currency would collapse, that we would see the economy collapse thanks to this maximum pressure. So we have been softening up the economy and preparing the ground for what our great warriors are doing right now. So the Iranian economy was vulnerable. We cut off the dollar supply into Iran. All of their oil is sanctioned. We've been able to keep the funds, many of the funds, out of Iran. One of the largest banks collapsed in December. The central bank was forced to print a huge amount of money. Inflation ensued, and people took to the streets. So there was an economic crash in Iran in December, and now we have the opening to go in, and our military is taking over from the sky and from the sea.
Mr. Secretary, can we talk for a second about what you think the CCP is, what's in their calculus right now about what they're watching in terms of all the oil that previously that was flowing through the straits, a lot of it headed to the CCP. Have we heard from China about anything yet?
I think that we've publicly seen a statement or a communique from China, urging the Iranians to allow passage out of the strait. China is very vulnerable on the energy side. More than 50% of their energy comes out of the Gulf. And look, Joe, over time, China had been paying a big discount. They'd been paying a gigantic discount in Venezuela. They still have access to the Venezuelan crude, but at a market price. In some cases, they were having a 75% discount. They've probably been buying 95% of the Iranian crude. That's obviously on hold right now. And then we'll go from there.
When the Supreme Court struck down or at least modified what the president's able to do in terms of tariffs, I think you made the point, or a lot of people made the point, we can do a full embargo, but we can't tariff something for $1. Now we're hearing maybe that the president would like to do something with Spain because of their, not cooperating in terms of the effort. Is something like that possible? A trade embargo with Spain? Would you be responsible for that?
Again, it would be a combination effort. And look, President Trump's frustration with the Spanish government is justified. That first of all, they've been terrible actors. They are the only NATO member not meeting their NATO requirement. That's known as a free rider. So the Spanish government is intentionally free riding off the U.S. government and all the other NATO allies who have stepped up. NATO has never been stronger thanks to President Trump. And the Spanish don't want to pay their fair share. And they said, well, we've got the Pyrenees between us and Russia. Well, the U.S. has the Atlantic Ocean, and we are the largest contributor to NATO. And then it was unacceptable over the weekend that the Spanish were highly uncooperative regarding the U.S. bases and what we could do with our planes as we began executing on Operation Epic Fury. So anything that slows down our ability to engage and prosecute this war in the fastest, most effective manner puts American lives at risk. The Spanish put American lives at risk.
Mr. Secretary, the president has said that he will raise the global tariff to 15%. I believe it still stands at 10% today. Do you know when that change will be implemented?
Becky, that's likely sometime this week. And again, that's under something called Section 122, and that's a 150-day authority. And during that time, during the 150 days, we will see studies from U.S. TR on Section 301 tariffs, from Commerce on Section 232. And it's my strong belief that the tariff rates will be back to their old rate within 5 months. And those are very fulsome authorities that they have survived more than 4,000 legal challenges. They are more slow moving, but they are more robust.
Secretary, we're obviously, we'd like to talk to you about everything if we could. I don't know how much time you have this morning, but the dual mandate, we can talk about, but we can talk about the Fed in terms of when you expect some movement on the Warsh nomination as well. But I guess I'd start with a discussion we were having about jobs earlier. And the new jobs, the number has come down, the average per month, but you have pointed out again and again, there's less government jobs being added or in general with this administration because of the overriding effort to privatize the economy. Is 4.4% with what you're trying to do, is that unemployment rate as low as you would expect?
No, Joe, and again, so there are several components here. One is the government saw a large net contraction in 2025, and we saw private sector jobs created. The other is the effect of 2.5 million illegal aliens leaving the workforce. So the monthly jobs number does not need to be as high for that. And we are at the lowest level as a percent of the total workforce for government jobs since 1966. We are seeing a technology-driven productivity boom. But the other way to get productivity going, Joe, is to have the private sector create the job growth, not the government. As President Trump says, he could create 2 million jobs anytime he wanted, but they would all be government jobs. And these are the high-paying jobs. We saw construction pick up by 40,000 last month, and I expect that's what we're going to see for a while. We're seeing this CapEx boom, and with the CapEx boom, they start out as construction jobs and morph into factory jobs. A couple of months ago, I was in my home state of South Carolina, 2 factories going up. Boeing, thanks to the president's trade deals, is expanding their Dreamliner facility in my hometown, Charleston, South Carolina, by 50%. So construction jobs will turn into 1,000 factory jobs. In Sumter, South Carolina, we made the first rare earth magnet in the U.S. in 25 years at a factory there. That was 300 construction jobs. Turns into 300 factory jobs that could go up to 3,000. So I am very, very bullish on the jobs market this year. The other thing that we have seen over the years, I've had very robust predictability with the jobs market, looking at the temporary employment market, and temporary employment market's been very strong the past couple of months.
We just talked briefly about Anthropic. I know that a lot of the products, it might be difficult for the Treasury or the federal government to wean off some of these products, because some people say that they're state of the art and the best that we have. Do you see a way of somehow coming to some type of compromise with Anthropic, or because I know you made the Treasury is terminating the use of all Anthropic products at this point?
Yeah, again, Joe, the vendor does not get to insert a use clause, the ex post, into a product. that if I'm sure you have a fancy foreign car, and if the manufacturer said, well, we don't want you driving it on Sundays, ex post, you would get rid of that car. And we had Anthropic at Treasury. It was part of a suite of other AI companies we were testing, and we'll have them out of our system within several days. So Anthropic isn't mission critical, and they can't push use clauses into their contracts.
But naming them a supply chain threat means that no one who is a contractor to the U.S. government can work with Anthropic either.
Again, Becky, this is very bad behavior on their part in terms of trying to decide what is the use clause.
All right, Mr. Secretary, we've gone long. You always allow us to do that, and we do appreciate it very much. But once again, thank you so much for your time this morning, and hope to see you again soon.
Good. And Joe, my final message is that things are going very well. The Iranians have made the mistake of bringing our Gulf allies into this fight, and I think that if every one of your viewers watches the news and not the commentary, that they will be able to get very good framing for themselves. And I'm happy to come back and talk to you at length again.
Fantastic. Great. Mr. Secretary, thank you.
We'll be right back. You're listening to Squawk Pod. Here's Becky Quick.
The inaugural CNBC Cures Summit took place yesterday in New York. This landmark event brought together key stakeholders in the rare disease world, families, care providers, innovators, and pharmaceutical leaders for a first-of-its-kind gathering to talk about what we can do to change outcomes and try and raise awareness for the millions of Americans that are impacted by any of the 10,000 rare genetic diseases. We kicked things off yesterday with a discussion on potential regulatory bottlenecks at the Food and Drug Administration that focused on the performance of the current commissioner, Dr. Marty Makary. The panelists included Congressman Jake Auchincloss, a member of the Rare Disease Congressional Caucus, former Republican Senator Rick Santorum, and CNBC contributor Dr. Scott Gottlieb, who ran the FDA in the first Trump administration.
The problem is that this commissioner is replacing the standards of safety and efficacy with fear and favor. He is doing a political end run around career scientists at the FDA through his commissioner's national priority voucher, through the volatility and decision making around endpoints and notification letters in a way that's undermining patient confidence in the therapies that come to market, and that is undermining the ability of innovators to bring medicines to market with confidence. And I don't say that in a partisan way. I'm on stage right now with an FDA commissioner who was appointed in the first Trump administration, who was a superb FDA commissioner, who came and testified in front of Congress about 20 times in his 2 years. Meanwhile, Commissioner Makary has not showed up once. And the first order of business is for my committee to bring him in front of Congress to testify for his failed stewardship.
Rick Santorum, let me have you jump in with this. You're a Republican. You supported Marty Makary's nomination to the FDA. What do you think?
I really can't disagree with anything that Jake has said. I mean, he's an FDA commissioner who's regulating by press release, and selling. He seems like he's telling his boss what his boss wants to hear. Meanwhile, the agency is doing exactly the opposite of everything that the press release says. And when
you say his boss, you mean President
Trump. I mean, look, if you look at what Marty Makary is out there talking about and what they're trying to do with his, expedite approvals and bring more drugs through the pipeline and all the other things that the president is vehemently in favor of. If you listen to what Marty's saying, I'm sure Trump thinks things are going great. The problem is that's not what's happening on the ground. And what you're seeing is a decimation of the agency. You're seeing people who are in leadership positions over Sieber and Cedar who are absolutely against everything the president's for.
When you talk about approval decisions, especially in this context when you're dealing with rare diseases where data sets are imperfect, you're dealing with small trials, you're dealing with randomization against natural history studies rather than placebo-controlled trials. So, it's sometimes harder to discern a clear benefit in some of these circumstances. It requires a lot of judgment on the part of the review staff. It requires the involvement of senior staff who have a lot of experience looking at these kinds of clinical trial constructs, and senior staff who are going to be willing to make accommodations in certain circumstances, and the willingness to embrace a degree of uncertainty. And I think when you lose some of the folks who have been doing this a long time, as they have, and they're continuing to lose that caliber of personnel, it starts to impact review decisions.
Again, this was a conversation that was pretty heated. It was right out of the gate, and it reflects some of what we've been talking about recently, too, what you've seen in the headlines. Concern about not just Marty Makary. I think that all of them have a kinder view of Marty Makary than they do Vinay Prasad, who is the doctor who has received so much criticism, who's been there on the forefront, as the FDA has increased the number of CRLs, complete response letters, that basically tell companies, sorry for what you were told before at the FDA, but we are not able to give you approval for your drug, even though you've been following the guidelines that we had set maybe earlier, or the guidance that we'd given you.
Santorum was a senator. What he was obviously implying that there's something between the message from President Trump and I would is that RFK Jr. that's in between? I mean, is that where it gets?
I don't know. In talking to them in background, trying to get to the bottom of it, look, what Marty Makary has said has been very positive. He was on with us last week, and the moves that he made to change the framework, I think, are very positive moves. It's been laid out in other places, though, that the right hand does one thing, the left hand does another, and I think that's where the concern is. There is a real pall over the industry, and from investors who say, how can we possibly invest in these things if the guidance we've been working on, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on over the last year or two, is not kind of held through? If we think we are following the guidance from the FDA and the rules get changed, that can't happen through administration.
What's the real story with Prasad? He was there, he wasn't there, he was there again. Who wanted to get rid of him? Who wants to bring him back? Who's his person?
I don't know. I've heard a couple
of RFK Jr.?
I don't know if it's Marty Makary. I don't know if it's RFK Jr. I don't know for sure on that, but he is certainly a lightning rod.
But he has somebody that's behind him a lot.
Else. Yeah, I know some things. I don't know for sure.
I think Trump's got a lot going on, obviously, and I think he does, and he likes to delegate.
But both Scott Gottlieb and Rick Santorum said that the president has always embraced. President Trump has embraced innovation
and quick.
He may not be a big fan of big pharma and some of the prices that come through, but he is a fan of innovation and trying to get help to needed populations. Rick Santorum, by the way, not only a former senator who worked on all of these things the entire time he was in the Senate, he happens to have a daughter who was born with a rare genetic disease and a granddaughter, an adopted granddaughter who has a similar, trisomy 18 is what his daughter Bella has in 2008. That didn't come about until after he was out of Congress. After he was out of Congress.
Is it similar to
yeah, it's
the phenotype?
She needs
trisomy 21?
I don't know. Trisomy 18.
That's Down syndrome, right?
She needs 24/7 care, I do know. Okay. And his granddaughter has a similar. One of them has a depletion of it. One of them has an additional, both on the trisomy 8.
Sounds completely different than
21.
The only thing similar is there's an extra copy of one of the equivalent.
Yeah, but it's complex. It's heated. There are people on all sides of this. But the one thing they do come away thinking is that you need to have certainty if you want to have investment in rare disease, and there's not a lot of certainty at this point. Now, Marty will say many of the changes at the FDA preceded him, with people leaving because DOJ came in, and that was before. He's only been in office 10 months. He's only been in his position 10 months, and a lot of those changes took place before it. But there are several concerns that have come up, and you need certainty if you are going to invest, and you need certainty over years of time. Anyway.
For more from CNBC Cures, check out Becky Quick's companion podcast, The Path, featuring stories with people steeped in the fight against rare disease. Those are bonus audio podcasts right here in your Squawk Pod feed. followers and subscribers should see those episodes alongside our daily podcast and bonus 5 Things to Know pods. We also have full videocasts of The Path on YouTube. Go to CNBC TV on YouTube and find The Path under the Podcasts tab. And that does it for Squawk Pod today. Thanks for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern and follow Squawk Pod wherever you like to listen. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.